Let's teach you all of the best hero pet combinations for any strategy. Welcome back to the channel then, guys. I'm your host, Judo Sloth. Whilst all of the pets can be used to some level of value, for example, LASSI is very versatile and could arguably be placed on any of the heroes, that is not going to be helpful for you. You want to know what the best combinations are, and that is where I will keep things simple. LASSI, you will only want to use with the Royal Champion. I am not going to go over every single use case in this video. I'm just sticking to the best. And by the way, once we get up to the yak and the unicorn, these are the best two pets. This is where your strategy will be pivotal on which heroes you use those pets on. There are a few reasons why you want to use LASSI alongside the Royal Champion. The Royal Champion is a very fast hero, jumping over walls, so you need a pet that is going to keep up with her. LASSI has the fastest movement speed of 32, the next closest being the Mighty Yak with 24. But the Mighty Yak has 7 tiles in radius, whereas LASSI only has 2.5. This is actually a good thing because often the Mighty Yak, if used with the Royal Champion, will lag behind and therefore be useless because it doesn't have that shorter range. LASSI can not only keep up with your Royal Champion, but also stay close to her, and since the Royal Champion has a slight range, LASSI can run out in front and actually has a fair amount of hit points. It is comparable to a maxed level Yeti. You then have the Seeking Shield, where if LASSI is taking a lot of damage, you might decide to use this to protect LASSI, and therefore the Royal Champion and LASSI go hand in hand. Again, you could use LASSI alongside the King or Queen, but then you're not getting the best value for the Royal Champion, and there are actually better options for the King and Queen, which I will get to. Moving to the Electro Owl, what makes it unique is the favorite target being the hero's target. This is pivotal on which hero you use the Electro Owl with. In majority of situations, you want to use the Electro Owl with the Grand Warden, because since the Grand Warden has the greatest range of all of the heroes, it means the Owl will stay back and therefore be protected, particularly with an air attack. I think the Owl gives a buff to air attacks, and it can be harder to use in ground attacks, as I will show you. Because here, the Owl stays back being with the Warden, and all of the air troops in front set off any of the black bombs, protect the Owl from any air defense, and it can stay with the Warden, just constantly chipping away at buildings as you move through. And because it attacks anything with a lava loon attack, it can also be used for cleanup, for taking out the enemy queen, and with the Grand Warden, it just has so much more protection. I would be cautious, depending on where you are setting up your attack, of a Grand Warden walk, because with the pets, you cannot place where you put the pets. It's not like you can angle them like the healers, and the Owl cannot outrange an air defense. The air defense will take down the Owl faster than the Grand Warden can take it out. I briefly mentioned, but the Owl is more vulnerable with a ground attack. It doesn't matter which hero you use it with, it's more vulnerable on a ground attack, but it is still best protected with the Grand Warden, not to mention that the other heroes have better pet combinations anyway. But a lot of ground attacks, Yeti Smash, P.E.K.K.A. Smash, you will be using healers and sending in Coco Loons to protect the Owl as well. But let's say I use the Owl with the King. He is right up in the center of the base in the action. It would be in range of the air defense already. By being with the Warden, it is set back a little bit, meaning the ground troops can get up there to take out the air defense and protect the Owl, so it is still better protected. And even if it unfortunately hits a black bomb like it does here, and then gets locked onto by an air defense, it has been better protected up until that point, and then absorbed fire for the healers, which arguably are more important in that situation. There is a situation when I would use the Owl with the Queen, and if you decide decide to do this, you then need to consider which pet you use with the Warden, and it will come down to whether you decide to use the Mighty Yak or the Unicorn with the King. You'd obviously then pick the other for the Warden, and this will become clear when we get to those pets. If you are doing an extensive queen charge, and I mean extensive to the point where you might run out of time, whether you are performing a Lava Loon or setting up a hybrid attack, time is very important, and it doesn't matter how overpowering your attack is. If you run out of time, you miss the 3-star. The Electro Owl can help to speed up your queen charge so that you have more time. I do warn you though that the owl is ahead of the healers, so you do have to be even more cautious at protecting it. Whether it's with Coco Loons, freezing the Eagle, or the Town Hall, it will lock onto the Electro Owl. It is harder, but if it is going to be the difference maker of you running out of time or not, that is the situation I would use the owl with the queen. Generally though, that is pretty risky. The Mighty Yak and the Unicorn are both better for queen charges. It's a high risk, high reward if you think you're going to run out of time in terms of the owl. But let's move to the Mighty Yak then, and really this is where it all comes down to your strategy, because the Yak and the Unicorn are the two best pets in my opinion, and they are interchangeable with the King and Queen. So let's tell you when you would use one or the other. It comes down to the base and your strategy. If you want a single best pet combination, the Yak with the Queen is my personal favorite, but I will tell you when I use it with the King. For queen charges, the Yak is extremely helpful because its special ability is doing extra damage to walls. It will bust through the walls and stop your queen from doing so. But since it will target buildings where the queen is tracking, as long as you have funneling set up for your queen, it will move into the base and take out the outside layer or two, meaning you can then just jump to the core. And also, because it is such a tank, it means that often you can save onto a spell or two early on in the charge. Even if you are performing a hero dive, just sending your heroes into the base so they get value and then get taken out, the Yak with the Queen is a great option. You might decide to take some wall breakers and even ice golems depending on how far you want to get into the base, because you're more using the Yak as a tank to absorb fire in this situation. And you might think, well, the King is absorbing fire, he is the tank, why don't I use the Yak with the King to absorb fire for the King and he will last longer? Well, because the King is out in front taking damage, the Unicorn can heal up the King. The Queen isn't taking damage until the end, so you don't want the Unicorn healing nothing, essentially. And the Yak will still absorb fire for the King because it is out in front. The Unicorn will also switch to your Queen. So you can already see how the Yak and the Unicorn almost go hand in hand depending on the aim of your King or Queen. As a side note for the Mighty Yak, if the hero it is assigned to goes down, the Yak will then become enraged. Honestly, I don't think this is something you can rely on. It very rarely happens unless you're using it with the Royal Champion, which I don't recommend, but it's a cool little thing that not everyone knows about the Mighty Yak. So you might be asking, when would you use the Mighty Yak with the King then? On two occasions, actually. Obviously, if you decide the Unicorn is best suited to the Queen, which I will get to, or when you need to use the King for pathing. You have the Mighty Yak to tank and absorb some fire for the King, but it also means that you can bust into compartments that you potentially need to maintain pathing through the raid, such as with a Yeti Smash. The King with the Mighty Yak can continue to move in and out of compartments, keeping the main phase of your attack moving through the center, so it just offers great value if you want the King to enter certain compartments on the outside of the base. That could be your reasoning for using the Mighty Yak with the King and therefore the Unicorn with the Queen, but using the Unicorn with the Queen can be a standalone strategy by itself, which I'll explain now. But you can start to see where the best combinations really come down to your use case of the King and Queen and picking what is best for your strategy. I displayed this in my initial Hero Pets reveal video, but it demonstrates using a Unicorn on top of healers, because if you did not realize, healers do not stack equally on heroes, and the unicorn is added to this equation. So you get less healing if you use it alongside the healers, but you did see it protected the queen's ability for that little bit longer. Whilst the extra healing whilst using the unicorn alongside the healers is minimal, it could be the difference maker. Not only in holding on to the queen's ability a bit longer as I showed, but it could mean that you can save onto a rage or a freeze spell, particularly earlier on in the raid, and use them when you're deeper into the core or for your main army. Perhaps it means that you only need to use a freeze rather than a rage. You are still saving onto an extra spell slot. I will say that most of the time it comes down to your strategy and the synchronization of the king and queen. Which pet is best for that situation? Maybe you do find a compartment that the king can bust into with the yak, use the unicorn with the queen, it's going to help. But let's say for a queen charge hybrid, I would always use the unicorn with the king, which I will explain. I will say I think the unicorn with the healers is a great option, that's why I've included it in the video, but it is for you more proficient queen charge players, particularly those who can forward plan war attacks and know it will make the difference. I mentioned that using the yak with the queen and the unicorn with the king was my favorite combination. I've already shown why it's good for hero dives, but I am a big hybrid player, and anybody that uses the king on the outside of the base to funnel, it's very common higher up in the town hall levels. The unicorn is perfect on the king for this situation because normally he slowly takes damage as he walks around the base. He only has a few defenses here and there shooting at him, but since your main army moves through the center, absorbs most of the fire, and the unicorn is healing the king all of the time, he just keeps going. A pro tip, which if you are still watching, I hope you are getting this pro tip. The unicorn also only heals when the hero is static. So since the king is a melee troop, he's quite slow, he actually gets better healing from the unicorn than something like the queen, who is constantly moving. If you want to see a similar breakdown but of siege machines, I have it linked on your screen. Subscribe button is also there, my friends. You take care, and I will see you in the next video.